Hi, very good morning to you. It's Jim from maverickstar Observatory. We're going to do the poll report on the last day of every month. It's just pretty much rounding up what's going on around the world, not just with the natural anomalies like grand solar minimum and the magnetic pole reversal, but also some of the other things that directly affect us. And I'm talking about policies from governments, and even more so from very rich, influential people. So before we do get into this, big thanks to those that are supporting us on Patreon and those that make those one-off payments on PayPal. If you've got a vested interest in keeping freedom of information alive, and you like some of the things that we do at the observatory, maybe you'd consider supporting us with a small donation, and you can do that in the link below. So just getting a general gist of what's going on around the world, we see that you no longer have to be in a position of government to change everybody's lives around the world. You just need to be a billionaire basically and have plenty of rich friends likewise, and you can steer the path of the future for pretty much everyone on the planet. And we're seeing this right now. It's true what Davos said in that meeting. By the time we get to 2030, we're going to be a little bit giddy at all the changes that have been made. And they're using things like climate change to drive these changes. And, if I just bring in the fact that, they want to control the way food is being produced, we know that farmers are struggling already around the world. And they're almost giving up because the margins are way too small, because of these big corporations have demanded that if they're not buying the produce from these farmers at the prices that they set, then they will go somewhere else, and therefore that farmer will be producing stuff he can't even sell. We're seeing this a lot. And modern farmers are just like ourselves. They may have lots of land and the capability to produce quantity, but when they have a bad run of weather and it destroys crops, they struggle just like we do to make those payments on everyday life things that we have ourselves. And when farmers go out of business, it's no different from when we lose our jobs, can't afford to pay the rent or the mortgage, we lose our homes. This is happening on a grand scale, and even here in the UK, it's got to a point now where a charitable organisation has been set up for farmers that are isolated, can't cope with the modern pressures and demands, and suicide rates are increasing year in, year out. And it's not just in Western countries like ours. If we go over to places like India, there is an extraordinary amount of deaths related to farmers that have lost the lands through not being able to keep up repayments, through purchasing seeds from a company I'm not going to mention, but I think you know who they are. And those seeds have failed, and through the changes with climate, it has led to them losing their family heritage of owning this land, and as a result they commit suicide. There are agendas that are forthcoming that we've got to be really concerned about, and some of them we can do something about, some of them we can't. But there needs to be more defiance, unions and protests, more so now than ever before. I know it's very difficult in the climate of COVID-19, but we're going to lose control completely if we don't start standing up and fighting back these organisations, these very rich people who seem to think that because they've got money, they can now change everybody else's lives to the direction at which they choose. It's a dangerous time we're living in. We can't change things like natural events and natural anomalies. We cannot do nothing about an active volcano that is about to erupt. We can't do nothing about earthquakes and plate tectonic movements. We can't do nothing about pole shift, and to some degree we can't do nothing about global climate. They're using certain things like CO2 in the atmosphere to stealth tax populations all around the world. I think you'll agree with me that we've worked it out, and we've been to the bottom of this bin, and we see no evidence to support man-made carbon changes the climate. The effect that we have on our climate and the amount of CO2 that we actually put up there is negligible. Yet they have locked onto it solid like a shark and will not let it go, even despite some of the best scientists in the world saying, you've got it wrong, you've got it completely wrong. This is not a result of CO2 going into the car, into the atmosphere through man-made carbon. This is a natural cycle that the Earth goes through, and here is the evidence. If we go back into the Earth's history, we will find that there has been many cycles of where CO2 has been at same levels and even higher levels than what we are seeing today. And nevertheless, they are sticking to their agendas with regards to that. It will be the case that when we get to 2030, if we do nothing about these things, we will be dizzy, and the world which we are slowly starting to not recognise anymore will be completely unrecognisable in just a small amount of years. You could almost hope that there is a reset as a resource of a catastrophic event taking place, such as a magnetic pole reversal and a large infrastructure damage caused through a weakened magnetosphere and a CME coming off the sun at the same time. And it wouldn't necessarily need to be at a significant magnitude like an X10, which I believe was responsible for causing the Carrington event many years ago and destroying just the telecommunications lines. Today, if such an event happened, it would wipe out pretty much every electronic system that we have and rely on to control things like the grid and logistics and navigation. So we are in a very vulnerable time right now for many, many reasons, and we are starting to see the impact of on this gauntlet of hitting the first obstacle, and it is going to be a case from here on out of cascading into all the others. And these billionaires and lobbyists are not helping the situation, and they're not listening to science, and even worse than that, they are trying to silence freedom of information, like here we see here on YouTube. We live in a day and age where they can control the voice of a president by simply shutting off his social media accounts. Can you believe that we actually live in a time period where that takes place, where one of the most powerfulest men on the planet can have companies work above his head and do such things? So, we see there's a big transfer of power going from governments now to these large corporations. They don't need, governments to execute their plans. They will do it themselves. And that is why we have meetings such as Davos and other meetings that go, behind closed doors to most of the general public, where they discuss how they are going to guide the future. We live in a world where the systems are breaking down. The capital system is, being largely, torn to shreds for its, its real ethics, and is failing terribly. We live in a technological advanced world where we rely on technology. Technology has reduced the need for labour-intensive work So more people are finding it hard to obtain money to participate in this monetary system, and yet there is nothing to replace this outdated system that we're in. And those people that fall by the wayside are going to become even more so as we go on into the future. I know that a lot of you guys will agree that the world seems to be becoming a service-based industry as opposed to a manufacturing-based industry. Here in the UK, we've lost so many big factories. We used to be probably one of the power engines of the world for production, and it's almost gone, bar a few companies now. And those companies that are still around are owned by probably foreign billionaires in any case. And there is no loyalty to the employed anymore from the employer. It's a terrible world that we are merging into, and we need to do whatever we can to keep a grip on what we've got left, because overnight we will lose more. It starts really by supporting observatories like ours that, of course, they want to silence us. They want their own organisations to be the ones that deliver science and information to the general public, not individual honest observatories like ours. They want to tweak the figures, cherry pick the information and present it in a way that they feel accustomed to. So I think it's really important that more people realise where we are and what we need to do. And trust me, freedom of information is so important. And when you're getting honest reports on the activity of a pole reversal, and these big organisations are not completely missing the fact that it's even happening, then that should send alarm bells ringing in your ears. Guys, I hope I've given us more than a bit of food for thought there. I'd like to see your response in the comment section, and if you can help support our observatory with a small donation, the link's down there in the description box. The only other thing to say is, God help us. Take care of your families, and as always, bye for now.